Dr. Hillary Manzik is with us. She's a clinical psychologist. I also have met Hillary through my Mom Supporting Moms work. Um, and Hillary focuses on perinatal mood, fertility loss, parenting challenges, and then also child psychology, which I think is an important gaze to have kind of when we're looking at and talking about this topic. To rupture and repair, which Hillary is going to focus on. So, you want to take us away, Hillary?
Yeah, thank you, Megan. And Ruth, thank you for talking about grief, because I think that is such an important piece of this, that we are all grieving, and this is also a collective trauma for everybody, which I know people have different understandings of what trauma is, what trauma means. But we are all going through this experience that we don't have an end date, that we have so many unknowns, and so we can't fully process it as we're in it. We're just kind of surviving day to day. And so that affects us, that affects our kids. And so I think starting this section on rupture and repair with just acknowledging that nobody right now is kind of at their best. You know, all of us are parents, teachers, working from home. We don't have any childcare. I always tell my clients, well, can you get a babysitter, right? And none of us can do that right now. And our kids have needs to be with us and be close to us, and they also have needs to go out and explore the world, and that world has gotten a whole lot smaller. And so for those of you with toddlers, maybe that's not that different, but for those of you, you know, I have a kindergartner and a newly 3-year-old, and my kindergartner is used to going to school, being with his friends, and that's a normal and healthy part of development that they're not able to do right now. And if you have preteens or teenagers, that's just even more so. Developmentally, they really need to be with their friends, and they can't be. So here we are, all of us coming in with our resources not where maybe they normally are. And so that is a recipe for ruptures, right? Which are normal in any relationship. It's normal to have a rupture with your kids. It's normal to have a rupture with your spouse or your partner. And that's healthy and good. And what's really important is that we know how to repair that. And I guess what I'm saying is expect those ruptures to be more frequent, maybe a little bit bigger and more intense than they otherwise might be. Expect yourself to lose your temper with your kids. That's going to happen. It has happened to me. I teach this stuff, and it has happened to me multiple times since we've been quarantined, right? Like, raise your hand if that hasn't happened. Maybe that's nobody. But I feel like that's important just to set the stage. There is literally no such thing as perfect parenting. It's never going to be achieved, and it's actually better for your kids that you don't achieve perfection. So you're going to mess up. So the question is, how do we deal with that when that happens? I'm a big fan of apologizing to your kids. So own your mistake. And that doesn't look like, I'm so sorry that I yelled at you, but you did all these other things. It's really just being able to say, you know what? I'm really sorry that I yelled at you. And I tell my kids, it's always my fault when I yell. I didn't handle my big feelings the right way. It's never your fault. So I spell that out for them. But, you know, just being able to look at your kids and be real with them. You know what? I messed up, and I'm really sorry, and I'm going to work on that. That creates a trust in the relationship that is so valuable for them. It's going to be valuable for them in their friendships and in their relationships as they get older. And you're going to have that with your spouse potentially too, with your partner. It's okay for them to see some of that too, as long as they see the repair. It's okay for you two to acknowledge, you know what, I'm having a rough day today and I didn't handle it the right way. And then to kind of work with them to repair it right there as a family is super healthy to do that. So just expect that there's going to be ruptures. Normally that's true, but that's like tenfold right now. And just go into it kind of knowing that. So just, I think that sets the stage for the expectations right now. And, you know, when we can talk about how to support our kids in dealing with feelings, whatever questions you all have, but I think the biggest thing is just knowing that you're gonna have tension with families right now, especially that nobody's getting a break. Everyone is with each other 24/7. It's inevitable. So what questions do you all have about how to repair, or questions about how to be there for your kids with their feelings, because I think we can go into any of that, but I want to make sure I'm talking about what y'all want to be talking about and what questions you have.
Yeah, well, you guys please feel free to ask questions. I mean, I have a question. And I also just want to say, I remember the first time I learned about this concept, it really blew my mind because I have been operating as a parent thinking, no rupture. There can't be any rupture. You know, like that's not supposed to happen. That's bad. And then when I just accepted, oh, like rupture's going to happen, that's part of this. That in itself was a relief. But so I have 3 little ones, and several people here have multiple children. And so sometimes I cannot deal with a repair in that moment, right? Because I have other people kind of pulling at my needs. So I guess I'm curious, like, is it best to talk about it there in the moment, or maybe you and the child are both, you know, have heightened emotions? Or is it better to wait, or does it depend on the situation?
That's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. Not only in the chaos of life are you not always going to be able to logistically get to it right then, but also, I mean, how many times are you still kind of heated, right? And you're still kind of in that headspace that caused you to move into that rupture in the first place. And that's okay. I think just checking in with ourselves, being aware, this is where paying attention to our bodies and our arousal and, you know, how we can feel when we're really anxious or angry, paying attention to that and tuning in and knowing that, you know what, I need a break, right? Or I need a minute of just focusing on getting dinner ready or whatever it was that I was doing. In my opinion, it's never too late to come back to it. With really little kids, especially with your toddlers, you want to try to do it as in the moment as you can, because they don't understand, you know, something, and a conversation an hour later is not really going to make sense. But I know with my 5-year-old, there's plenty of times that I'll come back around and talk to him a couple of hours later or at bedtime that day. And that's totally fine. It's better to take a break, take a minute, regroup and reset, and be able to go into that repair really being ready to own whatever it is that you need to own versus feeling like you have to check a box, if that makes sense. I see questions. Let me just check these out real quick. Okay, so I see a question from Debbie about allowing that rupture to happen between your husband and your son. Or I'm assuming your son, 4.5-year-old boy. Oh, that's tough. I struggle with that too. I can be in the rupture myself, but watching my partner have a rupture with my child, I tend to want to protect. And listen, I'm a big fan with my clients, and my husband and I do this. We tag each other in and out. I might say to him, hey babe, why don't you switch with me? Or I'll say, hey, can you switch with me? And so I'm a big fan of, if you have the awareness and you have the kind of relationship where you can tag in and out with each other, that's great. If your partner's the type of person who's not gonna handle that very well, then it's okay to let that play out. I mean, obviously, assuming that it's a safe situation and all. But I have to remind myself this sometimes, but that's its own separate relationship. And my husband would then need to be the person who repairs with him. And if he's not sure how to do that, that's a conversation that you can have with him. I will try to leave y'all with some resources for that sort of thing as we're wrapping up. But it's really hard, but it's also important to give your partner the agency to learn to repair that. And I have to remind myself whenever that's happening, just to step back and resist the urge to protect my kiddo from painful feelings like Ruth was talking about. So that's a great question. And then, okay, I'm just gonna read this question real quick. Okay. So Lisa, your question, that your older two, like you're tending to the baby and your older two are arguing with each other or with you. Anything to say to them in the moment where you need to walk away? I mean, I think I'm a big fan of just being very real with kids. So let's say that you have to walk away because you've got a boiling pot on the stove, or you've got a baby whose diaper needs to be changed or has to get up from a nap, and you've got another child right here who you've got a rupture going on with. It's okay, or even if you just need a break. Let's say you don't have another child distracting you, but you just need a break. It's okay to be very real with them and say, you know, I hear what you're saying. I see that you're really upset and I care about that. I'm going to be right back, and we can pick it back up and talk about it again as soon as I get back in 5 minutes. And give them a time if you can. I'm just going to run and change the baby's diaper and I'll be right back. Here's the key, and this is the hard part. They might not like it, and that's okay. So if you say, I have to go change the baby's diaper, I'll be right back, they might not like that. They might get angry. They might kick or stomp. That's okay. And you can say, I get that you don't like that. I hear you, and I will be back as soon as I can. So again, you're noticing a theme, allowing space for feelings. So it's not about fixing or placating them. It's about having a real relationship with them. And in that, there has to be space for them to have negative feelings. So I don't know if that answers the question. If I, at any point, don't answer somebody's question, feel free to type again in the chat box, and we can get into it some more. Let me see. Okay. And Ruth and Ginger, please jump in if you want to, but because Ruth, I think this speaks to grief here, this question about letting go of our own expectations about how this time with our families should go. And I don't know about all of you, but how many memes are you seeing that are like, make the most of this wonderful family time, and here's all the projects you should be getting done, and here's the memories you should be making. And gosh, that's a hard one, but just to let everybody know, it's okay if you don't make any memories, you just get through the day and you just survive. Like, that is okay. And there's going to be days where literally you're just getting through the day, and maybe you've had 20 ruptures with your child, and at bedtime you feel defeated. But I'm here to tell you that is okay. Your child is going to be okay, and you're going to be okay. I think for those of you worried about school, and I'm right there with you, homeschooling my kindergartner, which is not something I ever wanted to do, but here we are. You know, developmentally, especially our really little ones, so preschoolers, kindergartners, even first graders, developmentally, Freud said play is the work of childhood. So play and social skills, and so if they've got siblings, they're off doing creative play. That is exactly where they should be right now. Academics will catch up. So do your best. You know, if you're not sure that you're getting all of the things they would have been getting at school, no worries. It's okay. And I really believe that there's going to be ways that these kids are better off, right? Because they've had this time at home and to play and to have unstructured time. But I think this idea of we pictured it this way, but it's not turning out that way, that's grief, right? And so it's okay to feel that. And it's okay to just sit with that. It's not comfortable, but that even the grief of how we thought this pandemic should go, right? Who would have ever thought you were having that idea of what a pandemic should be? But by now we've got ideas of what it should look like, and maybe we're not living up to that. And that's grief, that feeling that we feel that's uncomfortable. So not to say
just gonna add really quickly about expectations. I'm definitely finding that one thing that is unsteady yet steady is that every single week my expectations have to change, right? So just not being really strict in those expectations and expecting that change, you know, for things to go on longer, getting schooling added to the pile of things. Okay, then expectations had to shift and change again. Not to say that that goes smoothly. I mean, there's some rough days when that shift is happening, but now I'm starting to expect that shift. Like, okay, I've got to be adjusting expectations frequently now. And I think that's helpful to at least be expecting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll speak to that real quick. And there was one more question. I don't know, Hillary, if you saw. But as far as adjusting expectations, and it's okay to lower expectations right now. I think people struggle sometimes to actually lower feel like they're lowering expectations. But that's okay too. And again, it's like you said, a day-to-day thing, hour to hour. Sometimes we have to adjust even our daily plan. There was one question from Sophie about her daughter struggling with the abruptness of this change and kind of going through the grief of not saying goodbye to teachers and friends and struggling with those feelings. And Sophie, I'm not sure how old your daughter is, but yeah, I mean, this is, again, such a huge loss for our kids because it's one of the greatest losses they've likely experienced in their young life. And I would encourage maybe, and Hillary, you can probably speak to this too, but maybe even like sending a note to the school, to the teacher, something active that she could do to kind of feel like she's reaching out. And we don't know, will there be a chance, you know, at the end of the year to say goodbye to teachers? None of us know that right now, but maybe finding an activity she could do, draw a picture for the teacher or something like that might be an idea.
Ruth, that's exactly what I was going to say is we have to create rituals. You know, we have rituals for saying goodbye. We have graduation ceremonies. We have all of these things in place, yearbook signings and things like that for older kids. We don't have any of that right now because school was just taken abruptly from our kids and we don't know if they'll go back this year. And that's really challenging. So, you know, we have to create those rituals, however that needs to look. And so maybe that's making a book together of all the things that you did at school, right? And you can even mail it to the teachers. I know a lot of schools are having parades where the teachers drive by, or they did in the beginning. My child's school did a parade where all the teachers drove through the neighborhood, and that was so meaningful. Even for me, you know, I wasn't expecting to get emotional, but it was something that I think we all needed, and we didn't even know we needed it. And so how can you create something like that? So however that needs to look, and just, you know, I'm a big fan of including your kids in the process. So, you know, here's what I was thinking. I know you have a lot of sad feelings about saying goodbye to your teachers. I was thinking maybe we could make them something. What do you think? Do you like that idea? What should we make them? And just including her in the process, I think would be really good. And where you see the anger, where you see the sadness, letting that be, because, you know, meaning just allowing space for it and acknowledging it and letting them feel angry, letting them express that. If they're being unsafe, then we stop them. You know, I see you're mad. I'm not going to let you hit, but I see that you're mad. Tell me more about it, right? Not trying to force them to have those feelings but not express them, right? And I think we do that a lot without even meaning to, because a lot of us were raised with, you're okay, you're fine, get up, move along. And so we may inadvertently do that to our kids. So just making sure that we let them express what they probably don't have words for. You know, like my poor kids are the children of a psychologist. So we're big on talking about feelings. And I kind of assumed that my 5-year-old would tell me whatever was going on. And he seemed fine with this whole coronavirus thing. So I was like, okay, you know, whatever, he's good. I mean, his behavior was saying otherwise, but I kind of thought, well, he's really good about putting things into words. And then one day he was making up a song and the song ended with, and then you get a fever and you die. And I was like, oh my goodness, completely stuck in my tracks. Like, this kid is really struggling. And he didn't even have the words to talk about that until it came out in a song, because it was unconscious for him until that moment. And even in that moment, when I said, oh, wow, you sound like you have some worries, it was very, no, I'm not worried about that, because it was too real and too scary. Since then, we've talked a lot about it, but we had to go about it not directly. So what that means is sitting on the floor and playing through it, right? Reading books about it. And I will try to share this if we have a way to reach everybody, Megan, but I have a really awesome graphic that a psychologist in New York who works with kids sent to me on explaining coronavirus to kids. And it's really simple, but it's really comprehensive too. And I showed that to my son and he was like, oh my gosh, that really helped. So I think just finding ways to talk about it that is safe and developmentally appropriate, because we all know the news is not. But just to point out that they're not always aware of what they're feeling. It's going to come out in behavior. It's going to come out in weird ways. But if you can recognize it as, ooh, this is probably them processing this situation, then you're a step ahead and you can help them.
One thing I wanted to add is, and I can, if we have a way to send things to people, there's a great social story that the Autism Society put out about why am I not in school. That's, you know, a really good way to help kids understand what's going on. And so that they, what I want to say to you, Sophie, is how wonderful that she was able to express that to you. Do they not want to see me anymore? What's going on? The fact that she was able to share that is pretty amazing. And she's already working herself through it by just being able to share what she, you know, what her interpretation of this is. So kudos to her for being able to acknowledge what she's worried about.
Awesome. Thank you so much, all of you. I think that just all of that is so important. So I appreciate everybody's input and your questions.